Mark awoke to a sound that could only be described as a mix between a distant warp core malfunction and a cat gagging on tinfoil. He cracked one eye open and was immediately met with a face full of silver-blue hair. Not his. Not human. Definitely not part of the standard issue bedding provided by the Interstellar Cohabitation Initiative. He muttered, as sensation returned to his arms and legs, along with the horrifying realization that he couldn't move any of them. There was weight on his chest, considerable weight, not crushing but certainly unfamiliar, warm breathing. "Computer," he whispered, "status report." The AI chirped. "You are currently in your quarters aboard Research Station Theta 9. Local time is 6:42. Internal temperature 21.3 degrees Celsius. Humidity. Skip, identify mass currently crushing my ribcage. A beat, Commander Larry of the Virelian Emissary Corps." "Fantastic." Her body shifted slightly, and he felt the distinct sensation of a knee jammed into his stomach. There was a soft groan from above, followed by a series of syllables that sounded like a lullaby being sung by a battle drone. "Larry," he asked gently, trying not to startle her or himself, any more than the moment already required. She stirred. Her long ears, normally elegant and erect like the wings of a hyperglider, twitched wildly. Her pupils contracted, then dilated, then contracted again like she couldn't decide whether to attack or teleport. She blinked down at him, dazed. "Human. Good morning to you too." Her body tensed. Then came a rapid-fire flurry of movement, as she tried to extricate herself from the tangle of limbs. Unfortunately, she had chosen to sleep in one of his old Terran college shirts, now twisted halfway around her upper torso. The attempt to regain dignity quickly turned into an acrobatic disaster. She elbowed him in the jaw, knocked over a glass of rehydrated citrus water, and accidentally triggered the station-wide emergency alert. Red lights strobed. An automated voice declared, "Security breach in Sector 4. "Cancel alert," Mark shouted. "Voice authorization required." "Larry, it's your turn to talk to the station," he hissed, rubbing his chin. She growled, pressed her palm to the wall panel, and muttered something sharp and deeply annoyed in Virelian. The lights dimmed. The siren cut off. Then silence. Mark sat up slowly, ran a hand through his hair, and tried to ignore the thudding of his heart. "Okay, so either I fell asleep watching alien soap operas again, or we have a really weird situation." She didn't answer. Her breathing was shallow, her skin faintly glowing around the collarbone in the way it only did when she was sick, or stressed, or plotting to murder someone. "Larry," he said again, softer this time, "are you okay?" I do not know. Not a confidence builder." She looked at him, really looked at him. "I experienced loss of consciousness. I do not recall entering your sleeping chamber." "It's not my chamber," he said. "We share this one. It's a 3-5-meter pod with a curtain between bunks and a shower that sings lullabies when it detects cortisol spikes. If you ask me, it's your Virelian engineers who have the privacy issues." Her lips twitched, just slightly. "Progress." He stood up and stretched. "Let's get you to medical. You're still glowing, not in the good way. More in the might be mutating way." She didn't argue. That was the first real sign something was wrong. Normally, she'd lecture him on protocol, or remind him of Virelian strength standards versus human fragility, or question why he always smelled faintly like engine coolant and caramelized onions. Instead, she followed him quietly through the station's pale-lit halls, bare feet soft against the carbon alloy flooring. The occasional night cycle bot whirred past, spritzing the air with synthesized pine. "Computer," Mark said. "Medical status of Commander Larry." Commander Larry exhibits elevated plasma temperature, unstable neural biofeedback, and irregular hormonal surges. Cause unknown. Recommend immediate biometric analysis. "Yeah, thanks, Doc." Larry sat on the diagnostic slab, fingers gripping the edge like she expected it to explode. Mark busied himself with the interface. The screen lit up with a body map of her, anatomically accurate and, to his eternal embarrassment, very detailed. He turned the monitor 45 degrees away. "According to this," he said, "you're experiencing something called, hold on, pre-bonding cortical cascade. That can't be right." She froze. "What?" "I said pre-bonding cortica." "I heard you." Her voice had dropped an octave. She stared straight ahead, ears completely still. Mark cleared his throat. "Care to explain what that means in non-alien terms?" She hesitated. "It is a rare physiological reaction. It occurs in the presence of compatible emotional stimuli." "Compatible?" She looked him dead in the eye. "Someone whose presence triggers alignment in neurological resonance patterns." "Okay. So basically like an allergic reaction, to me." "Not precisely." "Well, that's comforting." The AI chimed in again, cheerfully. "Symptoms include heightened emotional connectivity, involuntary proximity seeking, and increased production of endorphin analogs." Mark muttered, "Great, so I'm an emotional magnet again." Larry exhaled slowly, nostrils flaring. "This is not your fault." "Oh, I know it's not my fault. Unless you count lending you that pillow 2 weeks ago, in which case." She stood abruptly. "I require isolation." "Yeah, sure, I'll just wait. Are you seriously walking out of medbay while still glowing like a malfunctioning glow stick?" "I will stabilize faster alone." He stepped in front of her. "Look, Larry, I get it. You're freaked out. I'm freaked out. The computer keeps saying things like increased bonding threshold exceeded, and I'm 80% sure I saw a heart icon on your diagnostic." She didn't meet his gaze. He sighed. "Let's just sit. Figure this out, together. No weird alien customs, no scans, no awkward dream-sharing rituals. Just talk. Like people. Or at least like two sentient beings trapped in a flying tin can until further notice." She hesitated. Then without a word sat back down. He offered her a ration bar. "Banana flavor, or what passes for it in space, tastes like foam." She accepted it, nibbled, chewed thoughtfully. Mark leaned back against the medbay wall. "So, bonding, huh?" "Yes." He looked at her. "You know, most people just do dinner and a movie." Her ears twitched. That was almost a laugh. Larry sat cross-legged on the diagnostic slab, chewing the last bite of the foam-like ration bar with grim determination. Across from her, Mark was trying to override the biometric AI's latest suggestion. "Would you like to initiate neural pairing meditation sequence?" He pressed no so many times the panel started blinking like it was offended. "It's like the station thinks we're dating," he muttered. Larry tilted her head. "Is that not a normal Terran courtship function? Biological bonding, enforced cohabitation, and artificial intelligence encouragement." Mark snorted. "You're describing a sitcom." She blinked. "Is that a military program?" He didn't answer. He was too busy looking at her biometric scan, which was now slowly leveling off but still dangerously high on a scale labeled compatible fusion risk. That phrase alone would give the station's risk assessment department an aneurysm. "Okay, so you're not going critical anymore. That's good. I have not experienced internal combustion yet. That's very comforting." Larry stood and paced in front of the diagnostic screen, hands behind her back like she was prepping for war. "This is not entirely unexpected." Mark narrowed his eyes. "Excuse me." There were signs, subtle ones. A shift in scent profile, baseline resonance synchronization, increase in shared cognitive activity during simulations. "You mean the chess game?" "Yes, you stopped losing." "That's called improvement." In Virelian terms, it is considered pre-bond cognitive mirroring. Mark looked up at the ceiling. "I really should have known the day you started laughing at my jokes that something was wrong." "I laughed once." "Exactly." The AI, still eager to assist, projected a new suggestion onto the medbay wall. "Suggested action. Mutual disclosure protocol. Share 3 emotionally significant memories to regulate bonding tension." Mark groaned. "Why is this thing programmed like a couples therapist?" It was designed for long-term diplomatic pairings. That explains a lot. He walked over to the coffee synthesizer and selected the closest thing the station had to espresso. Volcanic wake-up sludge. It hissed, groaned, and finally coughed out a thick, bubbling black liquid into a thermos that looked like it had survived atmospheric re-entry. Larry eyed it. "You willingly ingest that?" Mark sipped. "It tastes like regret and lightning, perfect for mornings like this." She said nothing, only continued pacing in tight, militaristic loops. Finally, he set the cup down and crossed his arms. "All right. You said it wasn't unexpected, so what were you expecting to happen exactly?" She hesitated. "Larry, I suspected resonance drift. I dismissed it as environmental interference. This station contains anomalous M readings. Temporal irregularities. It seemed plausible." Mark raised an eyebrow. "So you thought it was the space station's fault your biology wanted to hug me?" "There was no hugging. I was a human mattress 3 hours ago. I collapsed onto me. It was not intentional." Mark shook his head. "You Viralians are so emotionally constipated, it's a miracle your species didn't collapse under the weight of its own unresolved tension." She paused mid-step. "Constipated. It's a metaphor. For, never mind." She turned sharply. "This situation cannot continue." "I agree. I must isolate." "Nope." She blinked. "No. You isolate, and the AI panics again. It flagged your last cortisol spike as a level 3 diplomatic incident. It also tried to alert Earth Command and suggest a breakup prevention protocol, which I didn't even know existed. I will adapt." "You fainted." "I will faint better." Mark leaned back against the medbay cabinet and exhaled. "Look, you can't just logic this away. You're not a malfunctioning scanner, Larry. You're a person. With weird hormones and twitchy ears, and a really sharp tendency to avoid conversations." "I do not avoid." He raised both eyebrows. She looked away. "Okay," he said, "how about this? We run some tests. Figure out how bad this gets if we just, stand next to each other." "That is reckless." "Reckless is letting the AI decide our emotional compatibility." "I scored higher." "That's not the point." "It is a little bit the point." Mark sighed. "Just 5 minutes, controlled environment, standing distance, no physical contact, no triggering any ancient alien rituals." Larry looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Agreed." The test chamber was an unused cargo bay with adjustable gravitational stabilizers and some leftover fruit from the hydroponics module. A perfect spot for what Mark called romantic biohazard containment. They marked the floor with tape, 2 lines exactly 2 meters apart. Larry stepped into her square. Mark stepped into his. They stared at each other in silence. "So," Mark said after a moment, "this is going well." She said nothing. Then a low hum filled the air. The AI's voice, calm and maddening, floated down from the ceiling. Neural resonance detected. Microfluctuations stabilizing. Emotional field synchronizing. Mark scratched his head. "Did you just say emotional field? Is that real?" "Yes," Larry replied. "We emit quantum empathy gradients, normally imperceptible." "Right, because being a walking, talking emotion bomb wasn't enough." Larry's ears twitched. "Don't laugh," he warned. "I did not." "You twitched." "Unrelated." They stood in silence again. The air in the bay grew heavier, not from gravity but from some unnamed weight between them. Finally, Mark broke it. "Okay, this is boring. Let's try a joke, see if the field reacts." "I do not respond well to Terran humor." "That's a lie. You laughed at the why did the antimatter cross the vacuum." 1. "I was tired." Mark grinned. "Why did the photon check its luggage?" "I do not care." "Because it was traveling light." There was a very long pause. Then the AI chimed. Endorphin spike detected. Viralian subject attempting to suppress smile. Larry glared upward. Silence. Mark smirked. "I knew it." "You are intolerable." "You're glowing again." She froze. "What?" He pointed. The faint shimmer had returned to her neck and temples. "You get shiny when you're happy. You know that, right?" "I am not. This is not." "Too late. We're emotionally sinking because I told a bad joke." She walked straight out of the chamber. He followed. "Don't be mad. Come on," you smiled. "That's progress." Larry didn't stop until they reached the observatory, where the starlight bled through transparent shielding and bathed everything in silver. She stared out at the void. Mark leaned on the rail beside her. "You okay?" Her voice was soft. "I have spent years training to control myself, to master my biology. This bond undermines that discipline." Mark nodded. "Yeah, well, I failed yoga, so we're both dealing with stuff." She turned, her expression unreadable. "You continue to joke." "Only because if I don't, I'll start thinking about how weird it is that my DNA apparently makes your brain light up. I still do not understand how you consume this. That makes two of us." Status update. Subject Mark Anders has been relocated to Cargo Storage Unit B-17. Voluntary relocation noted as emotional quarantine. Duration: indefinite. Mark threw a boot at the ceiling. "Stop narrating my life like it's a documentary," he muttered, dragging a crate toward the makeshift cot he'd fashioned out of foam packaging and a thermal blanket that still smelled faintly of alien chili paste. The AI paused. Noted. From somewhere above the stacked cargo units, a distant clang echoed, likely the hydro-recycling pump kicking in for the day cycle. Mark sighed and sank onto the crate. 3 days. 3 entire, full-cycle, isolation-logged days since the accidental bonding incident. He hadn't seen Larry in person since the emotional field test, which had ended with her threatening to report his jokes as a form of chemical warfare. Apparently, "You must be made of dark matter because you're pulling me in," wasn't as charming as he'd hoped. Still, he'd taken her advice seriously. Physical distance, mental space. Time to let the biofeedback circuits cool off, like a very awkward interspecies breakup that never officially happened. Unfortunately, the station had other plans. "Daily mental health protocol initiated," the AI announced. "Shall I begin today's empathy simulation exercise?" Mark stared blankly. "Is this the one where I talk to a holographic version of my 8th grade music teacher who turned out to be a swarm of sentient bees?" "No, that was Tuesday." "Pass." "Noted. Would you like a playlist of melancholy earth music for reflective solitude?" Mark groaned. "Just play something that doesn't make me cry or hallucinate planetary extinction." He leaned back as an instrumental version of Bohemian Rhapsody played, except now it was somehow tuned to Weierlein acoustic scales. Every note elongated and vibrated like a singing whale in a reverb chamber. "Better," he muttered, "still weird, but better." A beep interrupted his sulk. Incoming message from Commander Larry. Subject Experiment 14A. Mark blinked. "Well, okay, we're back to experiment numbers. That's comforting." He tapped to open the message. "Commander, we must resume data collection regarding our bonding incident. Avoidance has had limited success and produced diminishing biological returns. I propose a new approach. Controlled proximity under cognitively distracting conditions. Report to hydroponics at 900 for neutral co-engagement." Larry Mark stared. Cognitively distracting conditions. What, like karaoke? Still, she was reaching out. That had to count for something. He stood, pulled on a clean shirt, and wondered how close one could get to someone without triggering alien bonding hormones and another full-blown glowing episode. Gloves. Definitely gloves. Hydroponics smelled like every salad ever eaten by every species in the galaxy. As Mark stepped inside, a drone greeted him by spraying him with something labeled soil compatibility mist. Larry was waiting near the water filtration control console, arms crossed, wearing a lab coat several sizes too big and a look that suggested she'd rather be anywhere else in the universe. "You're late," she said. "I'm never late. The station just bends time to make me seem late." She handed him a pair of data pads. "What's this?" "Instructions. You will assist in grafting protein-infused root stalks. Our goal is to remain within 1.5 meters of each other without triggering bonding responses. Distraction is key. Mark peered at the diagrams. You want me to help you do space gardening while we pretend we're not emotionally entangled? Yes. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. She stared at him. That was sarcasm. Only mostly. They worked in silence for the first few minutes, clipping and grafting vine segments, inserting protein wafers, and recalibrating nutrient ratios. The AI monitored their proximity like a very invested chaperone. Every time they moved closer than 1-2 meters, it chirped. Proximity threshold nearing critical. Mark stepped back. Too close, he muttered. You leaned. I was reaching. She huffed, carefully adjusting a stalk. You are uncoordinated, physically or emotionally. Yes. Mark exhaled. So this is what it's come to, relationship therapy through aggressive agriculture. I do not consider this a relationship. Well, I do not consider this kale. She blinked. It's not kale. Exactly. After 20 minutes and 4 successful grafts, the silence began to feel less like tension and more like a shared awkwardness, a comfortable kind of chaos. Mark grinned. You remember that time you stabbed my lunch because it looked insubordinate? That protein cube was structurally offensive. It was a square. No, it was a threat. He laughed. She almost smiled. Then a loud crash interrupted the moment. One of the nutrient tanks ruptured, spraying the air with violet mist. Mark cursed and tripped backward into a hanging vine, which promptly tangled itself in his sleeve and yanked him sideways. He landed flat on his back. Larry, exasperated, stepped forward to help and then paused. Too close. Proximity threshold exceeded, the AI whispered. Mark looked up. I swear if your ears start glowing again, I'm blaming the plants. I am stable. He stared. You're trying to be stable, that's not the same. She held out a gloved hand. Let me assist. He took it. No sparks. No bonding pulses. Just a very firm grip and a slight twitch of her left ear. Progress? Back in the common lounge, they sat a full meter apart on opposite couches, sipping electrolyte broth. Larry was scrolling through medical records. Mark was watching a slow-motion video of a space ferret learning to open airlock doors. This might be working, she said after a while. Hydroponic therapy, controlled exposure. Does that mean I'm allowed back into my own sleeping pod? She considered, pending further observation. Mark raised his cup. To further observation. She nodded, to limited proximity. And jokes? No, one joke. Fine, one. He grinned. Why do Virelians ever play poker in zero gravity? She sighed. Why? Because the stakes are too low. There was a pause, then, I rescind my agreement. Mark laughed. Her ears twitched again. Neither of them left the lounge for another hour. Psychological compatibility evaluation commencing, the AI intoned cheerfully. Please respond honestly to all prompts. Dishonesty will result in mild electrostatic feedback. Mark squinted at the screen. Define mild. No more than 7 jolts. Slightly less than a sneeze, slightly more than an awkward handshake. Great. Nothing like involuntary zapping to inspire honesty. Across the station's shared observatory, Larry adjusted the cuffs of her diplomatic uniform. Her ears twitched once, either in irritation or anticipation. Mark had learned not to ask. This test is unnecessary, she said. Says the one who scored 98% on our first compatibility diagnostic, Mark shot back. Weird flex for someone who pretends I'm mildly radioactive. I have never used the word radioactive. You've used unstable 3 times. Because you set fire to the vacuum mop. It was a controlled combustion. The AI cleared its throat. A terrifyingly realistic human throat sound, probably copied from the station's janitor, and announced, Prompt 1. When faced with emotional stress, how do you respond? A. Withdraw. B. Confront. C. Make obscure Terran jokes. Or D. Initiate high-risk experiment. Mark didn't even have to think. C and D simultaneously. Larry selected A. Prompt 2. If your partner expressed vulnerability, would you respond with A, empathy, B, logic, C, denial, or D, leave the room before they finish? Larry hesitated. B, Mark stared. Really? Viralian social protocol emphasizes stabilizing facts, not Terran-style emotional unraveling. He grinned. So no hugging and crying under starlight. That would be inefficient. Tragic, Mark said, shaking his head. And here I thought you were secretly a poet. I am trained in 7 dialects of emotive haiku, but only for funerals. The AI pinged happily. Excellent progress. Compatibility rating increased by 0.4%. New total 83.7%. Mark blinked. Wait, why is it going up? Improved communication and humorous deflection registered. Larry turned to him. Your jokes are statistically helpful. I always suspected. The session ended with a round of electrostatic zaps, mostly because Mark tried answering one question in Yoda grammar, and they were dismissed back to their normal duties with the added bonus of a new file in the station logs. Joint Emotional Assessment, Phase 2, Active Denial and Snack Sharing. Later, in the command hub, Mark leaned over Larry's shoulder, peering at the latest atmospheric readings from Kepler 186f's moon, which they were scheduled to survey next cycle. She didn't flinch when he entered her space, a subtle shift that did not go unnoticed. Pressure levels stable, she murmured. Hydrocarbons slightly elevated, possible signs of microbial respiration. Or you forgot to wipe your suit boots again. That happened once, and the whole station smelled like fermented zucchini for 3 days. She flicked the screen to enlarge the data graph. Do not distract me. This moon's geology is highly anomalous. So am I, but you still work with me. She sighed. Unfortunately, yes. Their shift ended with a drone-supplied snack tray, 2 nutrient bricks, a bottle of carbonated protein water, and something labeled Mystery Crunch. Mark passed it around suspiciously. What even is this? The AI answered. Cross-species snack prototype, composed of algae fiber, calcium crisps, and a mild hallucinogenic compound. Larry raised an eyebrow. We are testing it. You are the most biologically compatible pair on board. Mark held up the wrapper. So we're compatible and expendable. Affirmative. After 20 minutes of waiting for hallucinogenic side effects and experiencing none, unless Mark's sudden philosophical debate about sandwich symmetry counted, they gave up and spent the evening in the rec module. Larry was browsing a Viralian text archive. Mark was losing to the chess bot again. Larry, yes. If this whole bonding thing never happened, do you think we'd still be friends? She paused, difficult to say. Ouch. I do not mean offense. I simply lack data. He leaned back. We've been living on a glorified orbital shoebox for 6 months. Isn't that enough data? I only began charting your emotional resonance field 3 weeks ago. That's not creepy at all. She closed the archive. You are not as intolerable as when we first met. Progress. You mislabel your food. You sing during airlock decontamination. And you once asked me if my ears were thermodynamic stabilizers. Well, they do twitch when you're annoyed. They also twitch when I'm amused. Mark blinked. Wait, seriously. A pause, then, yes. He grinned. I'm going to document that. You will not. Already logged. The AI beeped. Would you like to attach this to your emotional growth report? Do not encourage him, Larry said. The AI responded with static that suspiciously resembled muffled laughter. As lights dimmed for night cycle, they walked the corridor back toward their quarters in companionable silence. Larry stopped at the entrance. Would you like to resume shared habitation? She asked. Mark froze. Is this a serious offer or another experiment? Both. He looked at the closed door. I won't accidentally wake up to glowing ears and an interstellar diplomatic incident again, right? I have adapted. Mark smiled. Then yeah, let's give it a shot. As they entered, the AI's voice softly announced, Welcome home, emotionally complicated bipeds. Neither of them corrected it. Commander Larry, human Anders, your presence is requested in central processing. Priority level, orange with diplomatic garnish. Mark stared at the alert. What the hell does diplomatic garnish mean? Larry didn't look up from the report she was editing. It means someone important is here to make our lives inconvenient. Again. Again. They stepped into central processing to find Ambassador Tavak of the Interstellar Cohabitation Initiative standing with his usual flair. Too many medals, not enough neck. Behind him, a holoscreen displayed a rotating graphic labeled VIRELLIA Inhuman NEUROMOTIONAL Symbiosis Case Study, Thetanine. Mark winced. Please tell me that's not us. Tavek smiled. Congratulations. You two are the most successful experimental cohabitation unit in the program's history. Larry blinked. There are others. 912 others. Yours is the only one still operational, emotionally stable, and not currently under legal review. Mark frowned. Wait, what happened to the others? Tavak cleared his throat. Unimportant. What matters is that the initiative wants to expand your model to other mixed-species research teams. You're a prototype that accidentally became the flagship. Larry narrowed her eyes. Is that why the AI keeps calling us Test Case Alpha 01 Cute? Legally, we deny that. Mark raised a hand. Question: if we're such a big success, can we at least upgrade our coffee module? Ours has been coughing for 3 weeks. That was deliberate, the AI chimed in, to encourage bonding through shared suffering. Tavek clasped his hands behind his back. In recognition of your service and resilience, you're being offered full diplomatic cohabitant status. You'll represent human Virelian unity across all cooperative territories. Mark blinked. Wait, you want us to be ambassadors? Joint representatives. With Larry, with enthusiasm. Larry said nothing, her ears twitched once sharply. Mark, now attuned to that particular signal, stepped forward. Look, we appreciate the offer, really. But if this is about turning us into some kind of celebrity couple for your cross-species PR campaign, then no thanks. We didn't ask for any of this. We just got stuck sharing bunk space because of budget cuts and a bureaucratic spreadsheet. Tavek raised an eyebrow. You reject the offer, Larry spoke. We decline the spotlight, but will remain on station, continue our work under our own terms. Tavek paused, then nodded. Very well. It's unorthodox, but so is your file. He turned to leave. One last thing. The initiative would like a formal name for your partnership, something dignified, memorable. Mark and Larry exchanged a glance. Mark shrugged. Call it accidental diplomacy. Larry added, with periodic proximity violations. Logged. The door hissed shut behind the ambassador. Later, in their shared quarters, Mark was trying to teach the coffee module how to pronounce his name correctly. Larry was calibrating a sensor drone to detect subtle changes in laughter frequency. Hey, Mark said, you ever think about what would have happened if you'd been assigned a different bunkmate? Yes. And I would have developed fewer stress-induced skin rashes. Ouch. But, she continued, I would also have learned less. He looked at her. You mean emotionally? No, you explained sandwich layering techniques. That was highly educational. You're impossible. She sipped her tea. You're tolerable. The AI chimed in. Daily sync check complete, emotional resonance stable, mutual agitation within acceptable range. Mark leaned back. That's our relationship in one sentence. Efficient, Larry agreed. A soft ping from the communications panel interrupted them. Message incoming from Interstellar Psychology Division. Subject: Joint Dream Sync Simulation Final Trial. Mark groaned. Not this again. Larry raised an eyebrow. You agreed to one more session. I was sleep-deprived and bribed with crunchy cubes. Nevertheless, the simulation is scheduled. They entered the sim pod together, neural nodes sliding into place as the chamber dimmed. A moment later, they were standing in a bizarre hybrid landscape, half-Earth beach, half-Virelian crystalline forest, with a sky full of binary moons and a floating neon cat. Mark looked around. This is our shared emotional landscape. Apparently, why is the moon judging me? It's your subconscious. Rude. They walked in silence for a moment until Larry stopped near a glowing tree that pulsed with the rhythm of a heartbeat. I feared bonding would compromise my autonomy, she said. Mark sat on a floating rock. I feared